Hola, bienvenidos. Good afternoon. My name is Abelardo de la Peña Jr. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications with La Plaza de Cultura y Artes, welcoming you to En Casa con la Plaza. En Casa con la Plaza is La Plaza's virtual programming. We've been online via Zoom and Facebook Live since April of 2020, at the start of the pandemic. Fortunately, I think we're doing okay now. Things have reopened, including La Plaza de Cultura y Artes and many other places, but we still have to play it safe, please. We do every week at least 3 programs, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We bring you the best of Latinx LA via these presentations, these conversations, these demonstrations, and also performances from our home to yours. Our sponsors today is La Plaza de Cultura y Artes, and all of you who have joined us in making this possible. Become a member if you can at La Plaza. You can see all of our programming at lapca.org, including our public programming coming up starting July 17th with a outdoor documentary screening of Carlos Almaraz Playing with Fire, which coincides with our exhibition, Carlos Almaraz Evolution of Form, which is some of the incredible work by one of our Chicano icons of art. Also, you can go by La Plaza de Cultura y Artes on our location at 501 North Main Street and see our outdoor exhibition, Neon Art by Patrick Martinez, in an exhibition called Only Light Can Do That. You can get all of this information on our website, lapca.org, on our Facebook page at La Plaza LA. Also check out our Instagram and our YouTube pages. We got a lot going on. But tonight, last day of Pride Month, we have with us as the host, Xavier Mejia. He's the Executive Director of QTalk Radio. He's very active in the LGBTQIA+ community. He's been a guest on En Casa con la Plaza. He's also been a moderator there at La Plaza de Cultura y Artes in our public programming. And hopefully in 2021, we'll have him back with us. So please join us, Xavier Mejia.
Hello. Thank you for the introduction. I'm very happy to be back and I appreciate the invitation. I'm also excited to bring on Camaleón, and Camila is also known as La Loca. Camila, I want to bring you on. I want to welcome you to today's episode here at La Plaza. You and I have worked together for some time, and I just first want to check in with you. How are you doing tonight?
How am I doing tonight? I'm doing pretty well. I have a part-time job now with a trans-led organization. So after some work, after some community stuff, I'm feeling really good. I'm feeling centered, and traditionally I have a ritual of putting on some makeup before an event, and it's the eyeliner that gets me, you know. It's like like just doing the eyeliner is like, okay, it's gonna be a good event. So that's how I feel right now. I feel really good.
Let's talk about your trans femme queer ARTivist. How did you come up with this identity that you wanted to speak about so many powerful movements in one statement? Because if you can do us a favor, can you break them down for those listeners who may not know what trans femme means, or just even the idea of femme, for those folks who this may be a new concept for?
Yes. So femme for me, because it's an I statement, is definitely, I would say, an embodiment. It's a lifestyle of understanding kind of a relationship with makeup and other forms of adornment. Femme is sometimes, and I think folks need to acknowledge this as well, as beyond the makeup as well. So I think it's really like an ideal of how you live your day to day. Examples that I've seen in the past work have been femmes that have really long nails, but also acknowledging some people don't like nails. And so what does it look like when your identity is tied to maybe some objects, but you don't like those objects? So for myself and my transness, which trans means transgressing the boundaries of gender, I was born one and basically transgress to the other. I am a trans femme woman. I have claimed the identity of a woman for a little over 5 years now, and just recently started my hormone replacement therapy journey with it. So really thinking about the intersections of my transness, my femness, and also art and activism and archival methods, I would say. I found place for my work, and I found place for myself within the larger structure of LA County as a whole, and also the larger LGBTQ narrative of people just interested in doing advocacy-based work, you know, whether it looks like we're doing it through a collective art piece that we're making together, or if it's something that we're primarily doing via maybe some policy work and really going to the nitty-gritties of advocating through local city councils. I think that before we advocate sometimes nationally, sometimes we should advocate locally so we could really engage with the communities on a more face-to-face basis. So that's a little bit about my trans femme artivism and archival work in the past.
And you're someone that's really, really busy, and you know, being an activist is definitely a part of that identity that I've heard you speak about in many, many facets. So with that, I'd like to transition into, you know, your editing and publishing work that you're doing with the Trans Alchemist. Can you let listeners know a little bit about why that digital publishing was important for you? Because one of the things that you say is that transitioning is a very personal journey. So what is your vision with the Trans Alchemist?
Yes, and thank you so much for bringing my publication. So I currently, I guess the term would be the editor-in-chief of a digital magazine. It's published every other month. So the first issue was published in May, and my next issue will actually be published by tomorrow, by July 1st. So you're going to be able to get a copy of it online. And really thinking about the work that I've done in the past and the power of self-publishing, I'd say. I was thinking about what are mediums that I like to read? What are things that I enjoy to engage with? You know, am I going to engage more with a publication, like an online digital magazine, or am I going to engage more with like a 5-second Instagram post? And so really thinking about a longer practice of engaging folks through my journey, specifically as a trans person. I created the Trans Alchemist, which is essentially a bridge for LGBTQ plus folks who identify as transgender, non-conforming, or intersex to really see themselves within a publication revolved around trans culture, revolved around trans lives, and also the larger narrative of transness in the global scale as well. So what I've been able to research these past 2 months is really what publications are out there and what publications are out there doing the pivoting work of maybe centering trans joy, centering trans magic, and really centering the expression of the fullness of our full selves. For the second month that I will be issuing my magazine, it will still be just me as the main contributor for the magazine, but my September issue, which is the one that I'm super excited to release, is I hope to start offering feature editorials by other artists in the area, really using this as a medium to amplify folks' voices. And as you know, Xavier, a fundraising method for Color Me Queer as well, which is the LGBTQ plus Center's podcast that I'm currently the host of and you produce. And so really thinking about what am I capable of and how can I intersect this with my other work? I really thought about power and the agency that I could have by self-publishing work and also using it as a fundraising method. And so far, I'd say it's been doing really well. I think we have like 20 downloads so far.
I think we can start to see the picture and why you're so busy. And so to add to just language that, you know, that you use, you know, one of the things that you do a really good job at is, you know, just continuously letting us know the ways to move through the world in a way that allows us to be more aware of the movement, the trans movement. And one of the things that you talk about is your own pronouns, which is she, her, ella. Can we talk a little bit about why ella is important to you?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. And she, her, ella is really, I would say, a decolonial practice on understanding the roots of language. I think that if we really think about language in and of itself, and myself as a writer, I like to think about how through the same 26 letters in the English alphabet, we create some form of potion, maybe some magic, some music. Artists release albums on those same 26 letters. So really thinking about the power of how I can go further beyond the American language. I was in spaces where other people were using ella, the she, her form in Spanish, to really allow their folks who might not speak English as their main direct language to include that bridge, you know, understanding that maybe if there's someone in the group who speaks Spanish, but they need someone to translate or any of sorts, just by introducing yourself with that she, her, ella, I think you already include that lens of like, I'm here for you. And I'm here even further if you need me. Like, say if you need me to type something in Spanish, you know, I might not see un poco pocho, but it's gonna be there, and I'm gonna send it to you. So
Right,
really
right, right.
about my language is why I do that.
I want to move the conversation into the stage and where you and I met, which is, being community members of the San Gabriel Valley, and more specifically, members of the San Gabriel Valley LGBTQ Center. So this past 2020, you became the board president. At the end of 2020, you became the board president of the San Gabriel Valley. You also started, HR treatment at the same time. So I want to talk about this paradigm shift in your life, and also how that has been like for you in your new role, and what lessons it's bringing for you, and what we should be aware of in terms of knowing that, you are choosing to allow us to come in a very public setting. What's the best way for us to know that we have, for the first time in history, transgender president at the center? And how do we make sure that we create space for this moment in time?
Yes, I really thank you for this question, because I'm also navigating this with my board of directors as well. And really what I'm coming back to and always reminding myself is I'm a human just like the next person. And so the things that I find extraordinary to show up for it's just a little extra piece of me that the ordinary self felt like she could be there for. And that's through a transformational coach called Lisa Nichols, who I love her work, but really thinking about where I show up and how I show up in my space. I think about how in the personalness of my trans narrative, I've had to find a power within my voice that can be cemented even further. And so I say this through the medium that we've been doing primarily through Color Me Queer, a podcast, but also through the work that I'm sitting in as the president of this 501c3 that has been around for 10 years. So thinking about my position and where I'm at now, I'm also acknowledging and affirming for folks who might be out there who are navigating new gender roles as well, that I'm navigating being a woman as a president of a 501c3 nonprofit, and understanding that in my womanhood, sometimes I might feel a little deeper to the extent that I allow myself to process. Sometimes it takes me a little bit longer to respond to an email, maybe because I'm allowing myself the personalness of just like stepping away from the office for a quick second, but really allowing both of my sides to exist. The artist in me who knows that she wanted to show up for other people, but really allowing the personal side of me who knew that in order to show up for other folks, I have to show up for myself. So really allowing myself to go through the self-care practices, maybe if it's a day of just watching some very trans led TV shows such as like La Veneno on HBO Max, or other shows, like really allowing myself to be inspired by the people around me, but to be perspired, I'd say, to continue that moment of sweat, which is where I, in my personal journey, and I've been able to, since I have the privilege to, is I became a Zumba instructor right at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, and really thinking about my own body and the relation to my body through Zumba and through being online folks have also seen me transition on an online model as well. I now have to wear sports bras. I have to wear other types of clothing that I didn't have to wear before. But just really allowing my full journey to show up has allowed me to embrace all of me even further. And I don't like separating them. So I really think that in order for my personal to exist, I have to let the artist to exist, and I have to let the ARTivist, all of it coincides together.
I want to speak more about that space a little further down, because I also want to talk about sort of the nitty-gritty of what you also do to help meet the needs of the center. The center works with about 33 unrepresented communities in the San Gabriel Valley, which is east of East LA, right?
Yes.
Let viewers know what the strategic plan implementation process looks like to meet those needs of these communities that we serve.
Yes. Well, the main facet that we're pushing for now, which I think is the most important to advise first, is we're actually starting our Building Pride campaign within this next month. And so what the Building Pride campaign is, it's essentially an initiative to further cement the advocacy efforts of the San Gabriel Valley LGBTQ+ Center. As a 501c3 who's been around for 10 years, our work has been able to get to where we're at because we're all volunteer basis, and we've had a volunteer build, I would say, of a really cohesive team to draw to where we are now. But really thinking about the cementing of our path forward, our strategic plan includes, in the near future, hiring an executive director, moving forward with the paid staff model, and secondly, getting a lease with maybe a local city council so that we can get that $1 a month or $1 a year rent, so that we can further our initiatives. With COVID-19, we have had the ability to have to forego a lot of rental costs. The building that we were in was actually sold to a developer, and it's going to be used for senior housing. But really thinking about the fact that we don't have a space at the moment, it has allowed us to, I say, play a little bit of a catch-22 where our services are increasing and what we're able to provide online in terms of peer support groups, but really thinking about how we could navigate this healing period of COVID-19. Our team is looking forward to maybe doing socially distant in-person hangouts at a building that we will hopefully have soon. And with that future, we wish to have further initiatives like safe zone trainings for city council members, which we're able to provide, safe zone trainings for local business folks, and even an LGBTQ+ business directory and LGBTQ+ herstory timeline for really the work that has been done in the San Gabriel Valley from 1993 with the first group known as Catalyst to even now. So really thinking about how our center is playing a larger role in the LGBTQ+ historical moment that we're in right now. Even thinking how you stated about the 31 cities that are in the San Gabriel Valley, I have to acknowledge that last year in 2020, we were only at 3 cities that had Pride Month proclamations. And this year we are now at 8 cities. So really thinking about that increase from 9% to 25% is really thinking about the LGBTQ+ culture shift that we're existing in now. And I don't think we're done. I think we're just at the beginning of the conversation, because there are larger orgs and structures that we need to talk to, like school districts, city council meetings, even the ones that don't have city council members who still state that LGBTQ+ folks shouldn't be in their cities, but really allowing it to become a larger movement. I think that we're going to allow this moment to become that movement. So I'm ready for it.
And the way you say it, this moment, allowing this moment to become a movement, some of these moments have included invitations for you to participate in, some raising of the flags at city halls or receiving proclamations for Pride Days in certain cities. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that's been like and, what it's meant for you to be the spokesperson for these moments?
Yeah, I can actually share the most pivotal one for me, and this is just from my own experience. And another one I'll share too is, the first one is on the 2nd of June, I actually went to the city council meeting here at Baldwin Park. And as a Baldwin Park resident myself, I was sitting in this meeting. I went to the very front. You can actually watch it on the Baldwin Park City Council YouTube page. But really thinking about this place of like where I was 10 years ago as a Baldwin Park High School student, you know, I was like, would I have imagined me to stand in front of the city council meeting as this badass trans woman who's been navigating these structures, and to think about my post-grad journey of how I first got started with the center in 2017 to where I'm at now. I would have never thought of that one day that I would be there. Even thinking of further about talking on the 7th of this month of June, when I was at the Pasadena Pride flag raising, the progressive Pride flag. That same day, I heard that all of the local Planned Parenthood San Gabriel Valley buildings also raised a progressive Pride flag. So really thinking about this larger culture shift that we're in, I think it comes from the relationship building that our team has had for the past 4 years since I've joined the team, and also the folks who've either become board members and are now alumni board members. Yes, this is the exact photo. Oh my God, look at that green dress. I was gagged.
Yes, yes.
And now that as I started my HRT journey, what I'm also affirming is I'm able to wear these clothes out in public a lot more, and it feels so comfortable to be able to even wear heels. And even the days when I don't feel like I don't need to wear a wig today, really allowing my full transness to show up even without all of these accessories. But today, I put a little chapstick for you, Xavier.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And, speaking about undergrad, I know that you served in many roles during your undergrad at UC Santa Barbara that you've expressed help prepare you for these roles that you're involved in today. I know that one of those includes being the deputy commissioner of the 501c3. Can you speak a little bit about how those have prepared you to, do those work for trans queer liberation work in the San Gabriel Valley?
Yes, when you said deputy commissioner, I was like, "Oh, you read my resume." So what I worked in, and this is the coolest job I've ever had in my life, was I was a part of a 501c3 nonprofit known as Associated Students in College, which is just basically like the ASB with a larger budget. Let's be real. And through this work, I applied for an organization called AS Program Board. AS Program Board is known as like the lectures and cultural events in other campuses, but for my school primarily, what we did is we did large cultural events and large concerts. And I loved it because it really allowed me to see what it would look like to plan like a 15,000 person event, or even a large stadium event, such as like a soccer game halftime show, or other cultural, just allowing event making to be something that you can have anywhere. And really thinking about that work, when I came back in the year 2018, I was a part of the San Gabriel Valley Pride Festival. And through the initiatives that I was there, I was able to start a little bit of like a little music festival of LGBTQ plus artists who would volunteer their time. So really thinking about the stuff that I've learned in the past and where I'm at today. Event planning is at like the core of the work that I do. It isn't a lot what I do now. I tend to be more geared towards the policy side now. I've definitely stepped away from the more day-to-day event coordination and logistics, but it's something that's still at the heart of my work. And I think it allows me to take a view of the participant at an event, but to also maybe show up to an event that I'm curious about how it's structured, and really allow my view as a participant to be utilized later on down the road, maybe via an eval survey, or either recreating the event itself in some form of a structure. And just thinking about the scale of our work here, I think our work is very, sometimes even smaller than those events, obviously. And so even thinking about the peer support groups that I run, I really allow myself to think about, first and foremost, what is the intention is always the underlying cause of anything that I do, really allowing that intention to be in my heart. And then what is the power that I think can be formed through such a meeting? You know, if it's through a city council meeting, if it's through a 1-minute engagement, if it's through 3 minutes, what is that? Even today, if it's through La Plaza and we're closing out Pride Month, you know, what does it mean to be here today and to share the power and the work that the San Gabriel Valley has been able to do? So yeah, I think hopefully that answers your question.
You did, you know, and what I want to share is that I do want to dive into Color Me Queer and your role as the host. But before we do that, I also want to speak about your your heart. You have a specific tag that you use. So I want to make sure that I get this right. Your heart healing movement, which is notably known through your Zumba instruction. What has Zumba taught you?
I love this question. What has Zumba taught me? Okay, well, Zumba has taught me that this girl can shake it. But with that as well, I think what it's taught me is the process of a soul entrepreneur, which is basically the word entrepreneur with the word soul in front. Because I think to be an entrepreneur, you really have to have that soul spirited work that comes from inside you, that tells you maybe you don't need to work for somebody for so many hours, because there is this initiative that you can do on your own. And through that as well, it's also taught me that as a business owner, that there's a larger structure. Yes, that there's a larger structure that that you also have to learn. So what I'm learning in my practice now is really what does it look like for me to provide services, but what does it also look like for me to provide services and get compensated for it at a right amount? So I think that as LGBTQ plus artists, we never talk about the booking side. We never talk about what does it look like to get paid, how much should an hourly rate cost, but really thinking about the folks that I've been guided by. I'm currently in an LGBTQ plus teaching group where we're doing like business coaching, and it's by the Huntswoman group. I highly recommend the course for anybody who is interested in maybe leveling up their own practices. But heart healing movement for me is really allowing myself to see that it's never about the dollar amount, about what is on the other side of that. It's really about the level that it increases my heart. So an example could be I'm doing a quick, I've been doing an activation with Cal State Dominguez Hills. And really, this is one of the first ventures that I'm doing as a private gig with the university. But through that, I've learned that that I'm ready to do writing workshops a la carte for anybody who might be interested in doing a writing workshop for a group of about 40 people if they'd like. That I'm ready to do further activations on how to lead political campaigns, et cetera, but really allowing myself to see that there is a larger array of skills that I have that I'm ready to provide for the world and get paid for it.
You know, I'm going to touch on a bit of a heavy topic. And so, you know, in many instances, we have celebrated trans veterans once they are gone and they didn't get to experience that celebration, which was very true during the Stonewall riots. Who are some of your icons that you look up to, or mentors that are people that you seek to celebrate and honor? Because I know we've spoken about that you feel that you stand on the shoulders of giants. So I'm curious to know who they are.
Yes. Well, people who are alive now, I would say people like Mami Salcedo, people like Miche, DLC, and some other folks as well who are TGI folks leading policy-based LA work now. Even my new boss, Isaac, really inspires me to think about the ways in which we can use artivism. Like an example would be they did an event that was centered around a memorial. And through the memorial, they brought in a certain number of roses for the people that have passed away. And so really allowing something as impactful as an art installation within a city hall to really take place shows the way that like activism doesn't have to look the way that it has looked in the past, maybe there are other models that exist that maybe you've seen, like maybe you've watched an award show and somebody did a version. An example could be like somebody gets slimed or something, you know, for an event. Then what does it look like to incorporate that? And in my own practice, I like to incorporate play and really incorporate fun and power into all of the work that I do. And so really thinking about the people who incorporate that for me have been, I would say, other TGI folks who are artists. So really thinking of folks like Mickey Blanco, who does very queer and punk art. Really thinking of my own friend Yarabite, who has her own radio show Saturdays at 12 a.m. It's literally right at midnight. But really also thinking about how we find ourselves in these different mediums. And what I'm allowing myself to be and to show up is to show up curious and to show up in a way that I might not know all the answers, but I at least know that I'm here for the process and I'm here to learn even further. And even in my work as the president, I still won't say that I know all the answers because I don't. I think that what I'm able to do is really navigate my team well and understand that we each have our own strengths. And what my goal is as the president is to drive the whole strategic plan forward in conjunction with the team that works well together. And we have been able to work well, as you can tell through the proclamations we've been able to acquire. But I know that in further cementing our role in the larger county as a whole, I'm really excited to see what we're able to accomplish because I think this is just the beginning. I think we busted the door down and we're ready to come in. So.
You know, one of the episodes of Color Me Queer, which is the podcast that you host and that I help produce, there is an episode that speaks about planting the flags. And, you know, you had Erin Sines come on to speak about this topic about planting the flags in the San Gabriel Valley. But you have not just been planting flags, you've been building bridges. And by building bridges, you wanted to make sure that there was a digital platform out there that would allow stories from the San Gabriel Valley to be told, and hence Color Me Queer was born. Let's talk a little bit about this podcast. Let our listeners know a little bit about how it's been like for you to take on the mic and, you know, speak to our community members and to what it takes for you to prepare and you know, really develop these conversations.
Yes, well, I'm an artist who's still learning her process. So really seeing this podcast take off, I'd say, and to see the amount of people who've downloaded episodes, who've listened to episodes. I even have a friend, she's always very eager whenever the next one's gonna come out. And she messages me like where's the next episode? But really allowing myself to think about what does that process look like to host a show, to be here. First and foremost, I thank you for the guidance that you've been able to provide, and not just for the podcast that we host with the San Gabriel Valley LGBTQ Center, but for other podcasts that I know you produce as well. So really thinking about the process that it comes to finding my voice. What I learned, and this is what I've done in the past, is I would do voice memos. Whenever I was driving, and I have an Apple Watch, and so I would just put the voice memo app on my Apple Watch, and then I would just kind of vibe on like a 5 to 10 minute rant on maybe how my day is going, maybe something that has triggered me for that day, and I'm just processing an emotion. But really seeing this as maybe the beginning steps of how I started to learn about my voice even further. Was where it was. And I have to speak about it as well, because I feel like there are not as many TGI individuals that I know of who host podcasts or who even host like things within a front of a camera. I think it's a vulnerable act. And I think it also takes a specific spunk, you know, and so really thinking about what I've been able to do in the past and where I want to continue forward, I think about how this is really the cementing, and it's an effort to cement our work even further through a recorded version that can be replayed at a later time for folks. And I think that's the first thing, like allowing it to be that archival method is something that's gorgeous and beautiful. But the second thing is the word that we always come back to is thinking about that legacy project. Like, what does it mean to leave something for somebody? What does it mean to show up to the table and know that you're not just showing up for yourself, you're showing up for something larger than you. And you don't know what it looks like on the other side, but sometimes we have to ask ourselves that questions as artists, like, where are we showing up? And maybe even sometimes, which is uncomfortable, is where might be we show up too small, that we should be playing larger than life. And that's what the podcast was to me. It was me being like, as much as I love the policy side of all of the work that I do in the center, I knew that I needed to have that creative outlet in order for the creative side of the center to be archived. And it's allowed our newsletter to become a lot better. It's allowed us to think about why we start to record these shows. And with that as well, it's also allowed people who want to be on our show as well. And so really allowing it to be a method that is larger than me. Is I'm just here as the medium, and I'm here to just show up and help facilitate that with the help of an amazing producer known as Xavier.
Thank you. One of the things that I said to you early on is that you're a natural. There is no editing process for Color Me Queer. It gets recorded in one take and then it's ready to go. That's a very rare process when it comes to recording a podcast. And the reason I also bring that up is because you and I had those conversations early on, which is that sense of feeling vulnerable. And we were also very careful about speaking about Color Me Queer as a medium because you are the first guest. We have Sarah Acevedo, who played guest host to introduce you, and that's a fantastic episode. If folks haven't listened to it, I would, you can go to www.colormequeer.com. And one of the things that you talk about in that episode is your transitioning process, right? So early on, you already let people know that you are going through a journey, but we're not really putting this podcast out there as though, come on and listen to our transgender host. It's just what it is, that's just what the show happens to cover, our stories from within the community, and then you're the host. And but do you think that at some point there are people who are questioning what's happening? Why aren't we talking about, your transition more? Do you think that there are folks who are asking, why is this podcast called Color Me Queer? Do you have you heard a little bit about that? Have you had any feedback?
I have mostly had feedback of people just anticipating the next episode, I'd say. I haven't gotten any, I wouldn't even call it backlash. I would say just like critical points to think about, which I think anybody could receive. And I think folks should be open to receiving those. So anybody listening to this today or watching the recording and they would love to be critical of our podcast, Color Me Queer, please reach out at president@sgvlgbtq.org. And I'm definitely open for a dialogue. But thinking about the space that we have now and why Color Me Queer started is so far what we've been able to capture is really the beginnings of our story. I'm really excited for our next episode to be released because this is actually going to be the first one where we're interviewing another I would say big podcaster in the area and allowing ourselves to further expand the nature of our project. And what I think that we're going to be able to capture even more is individual stories of what it looks like to engage with the local San Gabriel Valley area, maybe if it's something that has happened in the past or even something that's happening in the future, really allowing this medium to continue to grow. I've even started to think about how the podcast in and of itself does have its particular niche of a subject, I'd say, because it is primarily oriented towards an archival method for the San Gabriel Valley LGBTQ Center community. but also acknowledging maybe that there is another podcast that I will eventually give birth to. And I look forward to that project because I know it's probably gonna talk about trans joy, trans power, trans love, and further expanding my personal journey. But really thinking about this podcast and its medium, I acknowledge first and foremost that I'm serving as the first host of it, but something tells me, and this is just my own spirit, is that I'm going to be the first one, but I definitely won't be the last, because I do want other folks to embrace this practice of being able to show up. I would eventually love to see a leadership program through the center where we maybe advise folks how to run their own programs and how do they run their own podcasts and how do they run their own story building and story making, because I think all of these methods as LGBTQ folks allow us to come back. I was a part of a program called Seeds of Liberation, hosted by Gender Justice LA, which is the team that I work with now. And in one of them, we had a visit from the LA One Archives. And at the One Archives, what we were really able to learn is the power of archiving ourselves as LGBTQ plus folks. So I'm just one person trying to archive a story. And I think that there's going to be folks who hear our experience and maybe take it into their own measures. I would even love to see what it looks like if individual cities start to host their own things. I can even see this project growing even further in terms of having a series of galleries at different LGBTQ plus, like LGBTQ plus exhibits at each city museum. Because I know each city has their own little historical museum, but why haven't they done a curative nature of work of people from that area? I think it's because they haven't pushed that much. And so I'm ready to push even further and to cement ourselves.
As we start wrapping up, I just want to thank you for, bringing on a project like Color Me Queer to the SGV Center. I think that the title itself lets people know this is going to be a conversation that is going to document the collective community liberation of our folks in the San Gabriel Valley. And like you said, this is documenting these stories is something that often gets left out, and hopefully we can, introduce these files, these audio files to the National Archive, which I think, is equally as important as producing the episodes. I want to leave you with the final question that you typically ask guests at the end of Color Me Queer, which is describe what colors your aura would be.
Ooh,
at this moment.
Let me see. If you can see behind me, my things are sparkling. So I don't know if I would be a color today. I feel like I'm more of the glisten. I'm that sparkle today. And I think that speaks to the work that I do. I love the intentionality behind space and voice. And so really just thankful to today for La Plaza for making this event happen, and to you too, Xavier. Because my aura would definitely be just a sparkle today, a little glisten. Look in the sky later and you'll see it up in the stars.
You're a beam of light, and it's always so great to work with you. And I always end the workday with you, with a smile on my face. So I thank you for coming on and for being a part of today. Where can people find you if they want to connect?
Yes. All right. First and foremost, I have my own personal website. Visit camaleon.com. That is CAMILA. Camaleón is spelled CAMALEON.com. Feel free to see me on Instagram at Camila.Camaleón. And I would just honestly say, sign up for my newsletter. It's how I send out the most updated information. I have my own Patreon. I do Zumba classes sometimes for free with cool partnerships in the area. But most excitedly, find me by visiting at sgvlgbtq.org, because in order to find me, you're going to have to find the center as well. So visit our stuff, support our initiatives, and if you become a donor, I'm just going to say thank you in advance now.
Thank you. And I also want just to leave folks with the knowledge that QTalk Radio is a program of the San Gabriel Valley LGBTQ Center. So hence why we work so close, side by side. And again, thank you for coming on. I also want to thank La Plaza for inviting me to come back another year. And, again, I wish you a great rest of your night.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much to Camila and to Javier. Always a pleasure. I wish we had more time. And we will bring you on once we open at La Plaza de Cultura y Artes. It's always so joyful to have you and to celebrate the community. A couple questions. First of all, we have some people who did attend today, both on Facebook and Zoom. Thank you so much for joining. Dion Espinosa, she's saying, I joined late, but just wanted to say I'm glad I showed up to learn about your work. I'm hoping we could bring to Cal State LA sometime in the future. Adelante. So there's a connection right there from Dion Espinosa. She's an ally and a Chicana from the STV. She's so glad to see this work happening. And so are we. On Facebook, we had a couple people join us. Gabi Valle from, let me see, where Gabi Valle, she came in, she says, thank you. Michelle Coutts, excuse me, Michelle Coutts. I just found out how to pronounce her last name. Thank you for joining us from Anaheim. We have, let's see, Michelle R was asking, how can we connect with the business mentoring group that you spoke of?
Yes, so I shared that one in the chat box over on Zoom, but for anybody who's at home and watching it via Facebook, it's thehuntswoman.com. So that's THE Hunts, HUNTS, the word woman, WOMAN.com. And so the Huntswoman leads their own business coaching classes. And right now I'm a part of the LGBTQ plus business coaching for TGI individuals.
All right. Now, question from me. I have granddaughters, and my granddaughters are really focusing, of course, on their personal identity, on gender identity. What advice do you give to them and to families as their children begin this transition?
Ooh,
that's a big one.
I love this question though. I think, okay, so a two-part question that I would answer would be, one is if somebody is navigating a dialogue with you or any individual about sexuality or even their own gender, understanding that person has probably thought about it for a long time before they talk to you. So really allowing that moment, that vulnerable moment, if this person is talking to you in the car because they feel comfortable, maybe they're talking to you because they know they won't see you for 6 months or something, but allowing that moment to exist and to not make it a big deal right then and there, because processing is something that each individual will have to do. The person who came out and the person who is being the one that they came out to. So that would be one, just understanding that person probably understands himself. And to any youth who might be watching, or to any LGBTQ folks out there who might not be out yet, the biggest thing that I can say is to just learn yourself. I think that it's important in order for us to evolve, we have to know ourselves and how do we interact with ourselves, because people are going to treat you the way that you want to be treated, but they first have to know, who are you? And in order to know who you are, you have to know who you are. So you have to do those deep questions of like, what am I? Who am I? What do I stand for? What won't I take if I show up somewhere and people say certain things? And where are maybe some points that I can engage in a dialogue that will be constructive, but not detrimental to my own personal life? So really thinking about all of these parts. Acknowledging the personal journey and acknowledging the full journey.
Does the SGV LGBTQ Center have any resources that could assist with that?
Yes, we do. We currently host 7 peer support groups, ranging from a group of services such as a disability justice group. We have an LGBTQ plus youth group, but the one that I run and that I host is I host a monthly BIPOC QTalk group, which is essentially for queer and trans people of color. And I also host our general meeting for our transgender, nonconforming, and intersex individuals. So anybody who might identify as TGI or might be trans, if they'd like to join one of our peer support groups, they're more than welcome to. We don't have an overarching LGBTQ plus support group, but we can definitely point you in the direction of some if you'd like as well. A lot of our work tends to also be centered towards LGBTQ plus seniors. So any seniors who might be listening, who might be 50 plus and might be curious, feel free to reach out to our group because we can definitely connect you to a larger group of people that are also looking for community as well.
Well, thank you so much for those resources, for guesting with us tonight. Javier, thank you so much as well. All of you that are out there, if you didn't catch this entire program, if you came in late, or if you want to see it again, please, we've recorded it. It'll live on our YouTube site at La Plaza LA. Of course, it remains on our Facebook page at La Plaza LA. And we also placed it on our website, lapca.org. This En Casa con La Plaza session, plus all 180 plus that we've done since April 2020, including Javier's previous session here at En Casa. So thank you for joining us. This week, we still have a couple days left in the week. On Friday, Dan Guerrero, of course, he's with us every other Friday with this happy hour. He'll be hosting Judy Baca, muralist, educator, an activist, co-founder of the Social and Public Art Resource Center, where she continues to serve as artistic director. Plus, she's having her first comprehensive retrospective opening later on this month at the Museum of Latin American Art in Long Beach. She'll be with us on Friday at 7 o'clock here in Casa con La Plaza. Next week, we continue on Wednesday. We're taking Monday off because it's a holiday celebrating Independence Day. La Plaza will be closed on Sunday and will be closed on Monday. And then Casa con La Plaza is taking that day off on Monday. But on Wednesday, Centro CSO La Lucha Sigue. Centro CSO, of course, located there in Boyle Heights, organizing for the rights of the undocumented, quality public education, and supporting communities seeking social justice and more. There'll be a group of them here on En Casa on Wednesday, July 7th. Then next Friday, Eastside Spanish Guitar, a performance with Luis Villegas. So that's it for tonight. Thank you again, Javier. Any final thoughts, Javier?
No, thank you for inviting me to come back on. And it was a pleasure speaking to Camila and also to see you again. And I'm happy to hear that La Plaza will be reopening soon.
Yes, we are open. Camila, any final thoughts? And first of all, I'm in admiration of all your energy and your commitment to the community. So thank you for that. But any final thoughts?
My final thought would just be to everybody out there, know that you can make magic as well. And I hope to see what magic you make. Remember that you each have the spark.
All right. Well, we'll remember that. All right. Thank you. So thank you, everybody out there that joined us on En Casa con La Plaza. And we'll see you next. We'll see you this Friday, hopefully. And if not, soon, and hopefully soon at La Plaza de Cultura y Artes as well. Muy buenas noches a todos.
Bye, everyone.